Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the 2023 verdict. I'm Train Valentine, so good to have you here.
It is indeed a beautiful day, this 14th day of February 2023. Welcome to the program.
Well, the message is loud and very clear this morning. Happy Valentine's Day, Chamberlain and Ayo. Good morning and welcome to the 2023 verdict. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
Well, Markway already told us the date, so I don't need to do that anymore. Welcome to the program. It's 11 days to the elections. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Well, the message is also loud and clear. Happy birthday to you if today is your birthday. How about that?
Yes, indeed.
How bad is it?
Yeah.
Some people's birthday.
Yes, it is. And I like how all the guys are wearing a touch of red. Okay, is it because I'm not wearing red? That's why I was left out of this Valentine's greeting. Well, to all the women out there, they can't say that the women... Yeah, they can't say that the women on this program did nothing for them. We reminded all the men as often as we could. And maybe that's why Buki is greeting only the men on this program. Happy Valentine's Day.
So what happens when we wear it the other days? What happens to those days? Regular days, aren't they? Okay, well, don't forget, you can always get across to us here on the 2023 verdict. You do know the social media handles, always there for you. So just take advantage of any one of those. It could be the hashtag 2023 verdict. It could be the 2023 verdict at channelcv.com. It could also be even the regular handles of Sunrise Daily. We'll also keep tabs on those ones for you so that you can send your messages across to us anytime at that. And then in addition to that, the countdown is still there for the 2023 presidential elections, the National Assembly elections, state governorship elections, so all of those elections, INEC, and that clock is ticking for INEC as we count down to those days, as a matter of fact. So you could take a look at that right there. 11 days to go, and I just wonder why some still think, well, we're still waiting with bated breath to see what happens. Who knows? Who can blame them about whether or not elections will go on as scheduled in spite of all the rumors out there?
Well, that's what we hope, really. I really hope that these rumors remain just what they are, rumors. INEC continues to reinstate, to reassure that elections will hold as scheduled. And I think that we should all have a bit of faith with INEC because, you know, the more people think about it, maybe the more things start to go awry. So maybe we also should exit. I know that we've experienced this too many times for us to be saying, you know what, there is really no smoke without fire. That's the truth. But on this occasion, if INEC keeps reassuring and keeps saying, look, despite all that is going on, I mean, we've seen them meet with NNPCL, we've seen them meet with CBN, we've seen them meet, you know, constantly holding meetings. And yesterday with political parties, they also held another meeting, reassuring the political parties these elections will hold as scheduled. They also met with the international community, I think it was the U.S. Embassy, assuring them that votes will count, that they intend to hold very credible elections. The only thing that we can do is to lend our support, plan to participate. I hope that you know your polling unit, because now if you don't have your voter's card, it's a little too late, sadly. And at the same time, ensure that, you know, you intend to participate in the polls. And I think that, you know, have some faith with INEC that indeed, pray for them and wish them well. These things really matter. Wish them well instead of keep saying these people. I don't trust them. I don't trust them. A little faith will go a long way in this instance, please.
Well, if anything, if it counts for something, the Presidential Council, that Transition Council will be inaugurated today. So that is a stark reminder that the clock is ticking as well. The time is that they will put that committee in place today to ensure that they start putting things together and prepare for their exit. So, yes, indeed, it will happen. And as a matter of fact, it's in our laws. The dates for which they will have to hand over, all of those dates are set. So, unless you want a constitutional crisis, which nobody is looking forward to. So that, indeed, will go on and happen today in Abuja.
I also see here that we are expecting an IHRC 2023 election media briefing. Is that the Red Cross? They're also going to be having an election media briefing. Well, when you say that this thing involves everybody, it does. So you'll be wondering, what role does the Red Cross have to play in an election? Watch out for the briefing today. It says they're also going to be talking about nation status and voter role. So indeed, you have a role. How are you preparing? And all of the focus is on INEC, but what about you? How are you preparing to play your role as a voter, as a citizen on election day? Do watch out for the briefing today.
Well, also today, the APC is going to have a meeting with its presidential candidate at the party's national headquarters in Abuja. What the product of that is going to be, I guess we'll have to wait and see. It's also something that we're expecting to be in the news at the end of today.
Of course, we're also going to see that the Labour Party will be hosting its presidential candidate at the National Secretariat today. So it seems as if campaigns are wrapping up. You know, it's just 11 days to the elections. So perhaps what we're not going to be seeing, maybe they're not going to be briefing us, but since campaigns are wrapping up, presidential candidates, political parties and the political parties will be, re-strategizing. Now they know their battleground states. Now they know the swing states. Now they know where they're strong. They know where they're weak. So perhaps they'll be making last-minute finishing touches to their strategies and, ticking the boxes and, just generally preparing to win. But suffice it to say, it's also time to, just to sit back and relax. I was watching the presidential candidate of the Labour Party on the Verdict 2023 yesterday, and, suffice it to say that he looked really exhausted, having campaigned around the country. It's
a lot of work looking for that kind of job. By the way, Chamberlain, when is the Voters' Party going to meet?
Voters' Party? What's so called? Okay, I think I didn't get the memo. Sure about that. If it's PARTY, I think I'm going to have to ask INEC. I'll pass. I'm moving to INEC. They're the only ones who can bell the cat at this point in time. They have the dossier, they register with them, so I must have missed it. But then I do know the Accord Party themselves will be having their own NEC meeting today in Abuja. So in case you've forgotten that they are also in the fray. I remember what we told you yesterday, all of them, all these presidential candidates, they keep saying, we will breast the tape. But I guess you know better than, perhaps, if not better than we do, about what to expect, where your vote will be, because only you know who you will vote for, who you think will win. So that's how these things eventually play out. But they all need to also, much as, yes, they don't like to give a lot of thought to not winning the elections, but we have to be as realistic
Think
as
about it like this, Chamberlain. When you talk about breasting the tape, think about it like as a race, right? As a race. All the runners, all the athletes in a race eventually breast the tape. The only thing that counts is who breasts it first.
What's the point?
Do you understand? I mean, that would be one interesting way of looking at it. So maybe that's how they're looking at it. Like, eventually, take your time and eventually get there and, But the only thing that counts, I mean, when they're looking at athletics, for instance, is first, second, third. Everybody else, you just fall in line because after that, gold, silver, and bronze have been taken up. But in this case, there's only one trophy. So who breasts it first gets it, Well, let's hope that,
And it's important that all the supporters know that that is what is going to happen. So you need to be realistic with yourself such that people don't go about binding all sorts of narratives as to how they might have been, quote unquote, schemed out of the game. No. Only one person will win, and there will be life after that. There will be a Nigeria after that. There's always been a Nigeria after that. But we have to ensure that we keep doing what we can to make sure things go right about that one.
Very true. I think we're also looking at the courts today, and Governor Wike's suspension case will be heard here in Abuja. I believe that, only recently he had filed I I don't know whether he filed a case or whether he obtained an injunction asking the courts to prevent his party from suspending him. I want to believe that this is perhaps a continuation of the matter, or maybe this is the party, I don't know. But there is a matter involving Governor Wike's suspension, of Governor Wike's suspension case. That's what I know. I know that he's not been suspended by his party. Maybe he heard, and this moves to forestall his party trying to suspend him from the generality of the party.
It's a preemptive suit.
Perhaps.
So that, you know, in case the party is thinking about it, he wants them to perish the thoughts. As a matter of fact, so who knows? We'll just see what happens with that one. So there you go. Those are some of the events that will play out today across the country as we keep tabs, keep our eye on the big date, 11 days ahead before we go for the elections. I remember when we keep talking about ensuring that things are done properly, watching your utterances, guess what? The DSS have been up in arms. They've been pretty active. They invited Mr. Fanikaide over some comments that he made about coup allegations. You know that word? Wow, it is a big one there. So they don't take those kind of words lightly, security agencies, especially the kind of times that we're in. So they're asking questions in case it's got a lot of information that they don't know. They want to know. And so just in case you're out there, you're watching, now you know that you could be the next guest for the DSS, just in case. You never know. So it's a reminder for us all to watch the narrative.
Watch the narrative and make sure that you verify every single piece of information which you share out there before you post it out. You know, we're in delicate times, and I don't think it will help anyone to be posting fake news. So by all means, make sure that you check, verify, and check again before you post out or send out any broadcast on your WhatsApp, on your Twitter handle, on your Facebook, you know, whatever platform you use. Make sure that you verify information because you don't want to put people's lives in danger.
All right, so let's see what's going on out there. Take a look at some of the front pages this morning. Let's start with New Telegraph and see how they lead here today. So the big lead on the front page of New Telegraph this morning, it's about there's some security component on that one as well. So there you go. So it says here, military ready to ensure election holds nationwide, ascribed to the CDS. Says AFN, police, others on alert. That's first of the riders. Police get 159,094 AK-47 rifles. APCs, that's armored personnel carriers, bulletproof vests, other assets. We will not conduct elections in 240 polling units, says INEC. There's a reason for that, so you might need to read between the lines. Why Nigeria's military is overstretched by Magashi, the minister there. And then you see police, security, free, credible poll. No, I'll go again. Provide security, free, credible polls. That's Buhari. He's always said that he was going to do that. So while he was addressing the police upon all of this event, he did say that they also need to ensure that they carry out the directive in line with his narrative, his instructions, his preferred way, how these things will go. So that's a big one on the front page of New Telegraph here today. At the bottom strip, PMS crisis. Western zone marketers cry out over price discrimination. Buy product at, look at that, 275 Naira. Beg to be included in 172 Naira ex-depot price. NNPCL evacuates 502.21 million litres between February 4 to 10. Size 71.74 million litres evacuated daily. So you might need to keep tabs on that one here today. So that's what you see. And then there's a little bit of stuff about mopping up the Naira here for you, which we'll like you to also see there today. Insecurity. No stay at home during elections. The paper says ascribes it to IPOP and things like that. But there you go. There's several other stories, but that is New Telegraph this morning.
Well, take a look at what leadership has. They also follow it. Well, this is a little different from what New Telegraph has. New Telegraph is talking about the military promising to give their support during the elections. But this one is focusing on something that we have focused on here for quite a while. Look at that. As Naira black market booms, CBN's silence throws Nigerians into confusion. Apex Bank mum on Supreme Court ruling. Supermarkets, drivers reject, supermarkets, drivers, traders reject old Naira notes. Banks give conditions. You also see there, PMB meets Emefiele as court hears case tomorrow. But I do know that the CBN issued a statement, I think it was on Saturday or Friday or so, but it did not address the issues that Nigerians were hoping that it would address, which is, can we continue to spend both the old and the new Naira notes side by side? That's the lead question. What is the status given the Supreme Court's ruling, and also given the stance of the Council of State, which met on Friday? There's been no update, and as such, banks have been confused. A number of institutions have also been confused as to whether or not to accept the old notes. So you find details on page 4 of the paper. That's what the leadership newspapers is focusing on this morning. Look at this. Gunmen bomb Imo court. Police kill gun runner in Anambra. Miners beg federal government for prompt compensation over acquired factory site. That is also there. And this started as a trend on Twitter, but eventually the police took it up. Police grill Abuja pastor who brandished AK-47 rifle in church. Okay, so the story was that he was trying to make a point, and he borrowed a gun from one of his, is it orderlies now? One of the people sent to guard his church. And looks like that hasn't gone down well, that has not been received well by the authorities. So he was grilled yesterday, I think also detained as well. But that story is on page 9 for you. You might want to say, look at this one. Ignore fake news on election postponement, says INEC. Over and over again, we raise up that particular issue. Fake news is detrimental to, the lives of a lot of people. Please do not peddle fake news. Let's leave it there for leadership newspapers.
And flip to this Nigeria. This Nigeria focuses on the elections with its lead story. Take a look at it. INEC suspends voting in 240 polling units. Cites insecurity. Says elections will hold in only 176,606 polling units. Taraba, Imo, top list of 28 states with affected units. No sit at home during general elections. That's ascribed this time around to IPOB. Recall the chairman of the commission saying yesterday that 240 polling units had been affected, but that INEC did due diligence, to ensure the expansion of polling units, but people failed to register in those areas because of security concerns. And that's another sticking point, in the conduct of the exercise, the concern about security. Well, you can't blame Nigerians, who are scared for their lives. It's, an individual that is alive that can vote. But we hope that this will be sorted out ahead of future elections, speaking of which there are off-cycle elections to come as well. Take a look at other stories after that. Tinubu to PDP, you lied. I didn't stockpile Naira notes. There you have it. There's a response to that accusation from the campaigns at the weekend by the opposition party, the People's Democratic Party. Also, right under that, you see this one, polls, federal government directs closure of polytechnics. That's coming after the directive by the NUC to universities to close so that students can participate in the elections, and the presidential candidates have welcomed that decision.
It's interesting that happened, because I looked back to 2019. No such thing happened. I don't know if it's our history, so I'm wondering why that is the case now. But it is definitely a welcome idea. It's just that let's just be sure the reasons we do things and that we can sustain it.
You know, these elections have been described as a make or mar decision for Nigeria, and INEC has also reaffirmed that view that the young people own this election, and you know, it's like giving them an opportunity to take ownership of the process and decide what their future will be.
The young people own the election, no doubt, but the young people actually are on digital devices. So don't worry.
Very important point, Ayo. It will make no sense, you know, after the fervor with which, you know, young people have participated in the process ahead of the polls, that they don't come out on election day to exercise their franchise. So don't just, you know, get 3 weeks out of school. Get your PVC and come out on election day. Take a look at this one at the bottom strip. Again, LP calls for free, fair polls, accuses Lagos wreck of bias. And under that one, you find this one. Massive crowd as Obi storms Ladipo Market, Computer Village. So that's it. Let's leave it there for this Nigeria.
And flip to the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Daily Trust and the leadership, which Mark Wetu seem to be comparing notes. Look out, see it on the front page. Banks ignore Supreme Court, reject old notes. Look at the riders. Ask customers to go to CBN. Filling stations, supermarkets accept only new currency. Well, that wasn't my experience yesterday. I overpaid via a POS. So after my tank was full, the fuel attendant gave me old Naira notes, and I collected, because if I go to court now, if I pay someone and the person doesn't collect, and I go to court, I'll get a lot of money from the bank.
Like you, other Nigerians have a right to go to court. But if banks are rejecting, you know, the old Naira notes, it's suggestive of the directive giving them by their regulator, because they can't reject the old notes without that directive by their regulator. So there isn't as much silence as we think there is silence. There may be some communication between the commercial banks and their regulator, the Central Bank of Nigeria.
Maybe it's not any further communication, but there has been no further communication, because the only one that the banks got is don't collect from social date. So the CBN has not sent another communication to them. Maybe that's
but there are still questions to ask in that regard. If banks are rejecting the old notes. There's a subsisting Supreme Court ruling asking that the status quo be maintained pending the determination. That will be tomorrow.
But you know that order wasn't given directly to the CBN. The order was given to the federal government, which says it'll obey. But the CBN is only part of the federal government. So if, for instance, your boss tells you to do something...
So the confusion remains, right?
Apex Bank issued 400 billion Naira new notes. That's ascribed to the EFCC chair. How much do we need in circulation? A question needs to be asked. Silenced by Buhari, CBN, recipe for chaos. Find out who said that. Stories on page 4 of the paper this morning. Right under the picture on the front page, elections, you're being watched. Buhari tells security agencies, and a couple of riders right under the story there. Wike Atiku feud, that's right above the major story. PDP suspends presidential rally in Rivers. Oh, really? Stories on page 8. Campaign activities force import to drop by 30%. That's ascribed to SUAN. And Southwest LP members dump Obi, declare support for Tinubu. Stories on page 8. That's the Daily Trust newspaper this morning.
Next, again, Buhari meets Emefiele, keeps mum on Naira swap. That's a big one on the front page of The Guardian here today. So, lots of people just looking to see what direction are they going to provide. And so here it says, excuse me, keeps mom on Naira swap a silent consent to what is going on? Will they interpret it as that? Several riders, the first of which reads, CBN, embrace e-Naira internet banking as alternative to cash. So if that's coming from the CBN, suggested, isn't it? So, and then you see Apex Bank loses 15 billion naira to hoarding, explains how to exchange old notes, tells you what they're thinking now. BDC's profits from Naira scarcity, lower exchange rate for cash transaction. Igbazu worried about cash scarcity on traders in Abia, commissioner says. Niger governor orders police to arrest anyone rejecting old notes. How about that? So put that in the mix, and then I know some of you are thinking, well, if this is the case, you know some people who should be arrested, or some companies, agencies who should be answering questions about this. But the thing is, we'll talk about that in the course of the program here today. So just keep it locked here this morning. That is The Guardian today.
You know, I'm just a little curious when people say, oh, accept e-Naira as alternative platform. People barely understand. People have barely, accepted transfer. That's what we're still dealing with, cashless. I mean, where you take your cash, take it to the bank, or you have an account, your money is in that account, you can cash it if you want, you can transfer if you want. We're still dealing with that. Majority of people are yet to catch on that. Then we introduce e-Naira. As educated as I think I am, I do not understand what e-Naira is about.
People have never heard about e-Naira in this country.
and then you say we should accept it. Our government institutions accepting e-Naira, assuming one was to pay for a transaction with, say, a government hospital, do they have a platform to accept e-Naira? These are some of the questions that we should ask. And as much as possible, I don't think the CBN needs to shy away from answering important questions that people have of it at this time. It's doing itself a little more harm than good in terms of, this silence, which it has, decided to hold or uphold in this season. But let's take a look at another paper here. News Direct is still here. You're under watch. Buhari to police security chiefs. Yeah, that's what it says here. That's the lead story. Unveils 127 operational vehicles, arms, ammunitions, as INEC declares polling units where election will not hold. Says 240 polling units in 28 states. FCT without voters to be affected. And what we heard INEC say was that these polling units were not chosen by people because they had broken down some polling units because some polling units were too overcrowded. And they thought making new polling units would help ease the congestion at those polling units. But to INEC's surprise, they say that those polling units were not chosen. Look at this. Mid-party leaders decries violent attacks as IPAC warns against postponement of polls. Well, can't blame them. Once beaten, 100 times shy. Sanwo-Olu meets Lagos business community, reassures stakeholders of state's commitment to growth. Companies, individuals on the run as federal government uncovers over 5.2 trillion naira debts. That is also there. They have a number of other stories on top of the nameplate. Banking industry remains strong, focused. That's according to the CIBN. And Buhari regime receives $5.3 billion dividend of NLNG. Yes, you have to pronounce that slowly. Nigeria liquefied
natural gas.
Natural gas, yes, but NLNG, that's why you
could be tongue twisting.
It could be, but that's according to a report. But that company has continued to remain a goose that continues to lay the golden egg, at least one of the most precious golden eggs that this country continues to benefit from.
Yeah. So there you go, that ends it with a look at some of the dailies here this morning. Don't forget, our platforms for you to get your voices heard are very much accessible and open, maybe much unlike the Naira. Well, just send us a comment or two. We will be back in just a moment. Stay with us.
Former presidents of Nigeria, Goodluck Jonathan, Abdulsalami Abubakar, and Yakubu Gowon are led by President Muhammadu Buhari into the chamber, where the vice president is also present for the Council of State meeting. It's the first hybrid meeting of the council as former President Olusegun Obasanjo attends virtually alongside 5 other governors. Members of the National Council of State, comprising the President of the Senate, Speaker of the House of Representatives, former Chief Justices of Nigeria, Governors of Borno, Ebonyi, Kaduna, Taraba, Gombe, Kwara, Lagos, and Service Chiefs are also present. The Governor of the Central Bank, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, Chairman of INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, and the Inspector General of Police, Mr. Usman Alkali Baba, are among those invited to brief the Council on crucial subjects, including the currency swap and the 2023 elections. After over 5 hours, the outcome is illuminated.
We are on course as far as election is concerned, and we are happy with the level of preparation by INEC and the institutions. And then 2, relating to the Naira redesign policy, the policy stands, but then the council agreed that there is need for aggressive action.
Many views were proffered, particularly that the CBN governor should look into making sure that money is available, the new money is available in quantum. And there were suggestions too that if the new money is not in circulation or printing them could be difficult, the old money that hasn't been changed could be recirculated and pumped into circulation to ease the tension, particularly for the poor people in our society who just need a little sum of money to buy their food, buy their drugs for daily basis.
With all of the advice that has been given, the executive, they know what to do. And I think as we move on, Mr. President will make, his thoughts, and his views on all of that, but he will make them known to the nation.
The AGF also shares his thoughts on the recent Supreme Court's judgment on the currency swap.
Notwithstanding the fact that a matter is in court, it is not out of place for the parties, particularly the parties of interest, to consider and do the needful if the need arises, which may eventually translate into either the discontinuance of the action or perhaps filing of the terms of settlement or reconsideration.
The president had on February 3 asked for 7 days, which expires today, to resolve the crisis caused by the scarcity of the new Naira notes. Nigerians are expecting that the president would announce his position to ease all encumbrances. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Welcome back to the 2023 verdict. We're coming to you live from Channels Television. We're joined, as you've seen there in that welcoming slide, by Mr. Femi Falana, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Good morning, and thank you for coming on today.
Good morning.
What a time that we're in, looking through all the dailies. Many are asking, well, where is the law? What is the position? Is the law respect of persons, institutions? We're talking about the Naira here, and we just seem to have a situation on our hands. We know that the Supreme Court at the moment is saying, okay, everybody hold on until we look at this matter. Isn't that supposed to, maybe you'll explain to us, should people be rejecting the old Naira note as today, as is happening in several places in this country?
Well, in a country where the rule of law operates, once the Supreme Court has determined a matter or given an order, it is expected that all and sundry, everybody will comply with the order. In this instance, the government was not really ready to comply with the order. The Supreme Court, the central bank, the statement was credited to the central bank. Now, since it was not a party to the case, it's not going to comply with the order. I thought that could only happen in a banana republic. I was even compared to issue a statement that all agencies of the government, including the central bank, were banned by the orders of the Supreme Court. But here we are. Here we are. Because you will have expected the central bank to have issued the statement following the order of the Supreme Court. All actions are stayed until the 15th of February.
What can there be consequences for this in terms of how do the courts respond to this kind of scenario?
I think the plaintiffs will have to take it up in the court because when a court in Abuja granted an order that Mr. Godwin Emefiele be not arrested, he wasn't a party to the case. When he ran to use some proxies to file an action against the Central Bank Board in Delta State, preventing the bank from moving against him for participating in politics, he wasn't a party. So people cannot choose and pick which orders of court to obey.
I know that they released a statement. I'm trying to open that particular statement now. Shortly after that, this statement is signed the 10th of February, 2023. It only talks about CBN debunking false claims about capacity of NSPMC, alleged threats to close some deposit money banks. So they issued a statement saying that at no time did the CBN governor disclose that the current challenge in the distribution of newly redesigned Naira banknotes is owing to a shortage of printing materials at the Nigerian Security Printing and Minting Company. And then I think they also clarified where they said something about banks. Yes, the CBN therefore wishes to appeal to the public to disregard the said report and exercise more restraint. And they also talked about a social media report alleging that the CBN planned to shut down some banks, in a particular geopolitical region of the country. So there's been some communication from the CBN. I don't know whether this for you...
To comply with the order of the Supreme Court? No.
No, this is the statement that they issued. And
that's on the 10th.
Yeah, on the 10th of...
Yes.
4 days ago.
Yeah, after the order of the Supreme Court had been granted.
Yes.
2 days earlier. Nothing directing the bank, no statement directing the bank to comply with the judgment. Yeah.
Should they do that?
And in any case, whether the central bank denies or not, the mint and print company is not in a position to produce and flood the markets with money. If they say, oh, we deny this statement, what has happened now? Where is the money?
I'm just a little curious here because this is one statement that they have released,
yeah.
But at the same time, some people will say, you have said that there is no way the CBN will say that it is not aware, even though it was not joined. But some people will say, and at this, I think that this perhaps falls back to lawyers, because the legal opinion said that the Supreme Court does not have jurisdiction over, it's not a matter of joining, it's over jurisdiction on monetary policy. Or even the CBN itself. I don't know. You shed a little light.
Unless you are calling for anarchy, no lawyer can sit down in his office or in the comfort of his room and say the Supreme Court has no jurisdiction. Once the court has assumed jurisdiction, rightly or wrongly, and has proceeded to grant an order, no lawyer can say that the order should not be complied with because the central bank was not joined or because the Supreme Court has no authority on monetary policy. Who says that, by the way?
Isn't that what...
Is the Supreme Court discussing monetary policy? No. Some state governments have approached the Supreme Court to the effect that by virtue of Section 19 of the Central Bank Act, the board of the bank shall submit a proposal to the president for issuance of new notes. So the bank cannot do it alone. So if the president approved the issuance of new notes, and the president himself has come out to say, the governor came to me, governor of the Central Bank, with a proposal to change the color of the Naira, what you call redesign, and I approved it because we want to stop demonetization of politics. That's what the president said. Forget what the Central Bank is now saying. The president said, we do not want money bags to make a mockery of the democratic process. Good enough. Furthermore, it was the president that extended the deadline of January 31st. He told the governor, give me 7 more days. Furthermore, the president summoned a meeting the APC governors met with the president where he said, I need 7 days. Now it's 10 days. He also summoned a meeting of the chair of the Nigerian Governors Forum, the chair of APC
Governors Forum. Progressive Governors
Forum, APC and the rest of them. And furthermore, the president summoned a meeting of the Council of State for advice on what to do on this matter. These are not the actions of the Central Bank, but those actions of the president. So if the president is now being challenged on the ground that unwarranted suffering has been unleashed on the people, and you are saying the Supreme Court has no jurisdiction,
can they
I beg your pardon. Now, the cases being cited by some of my colleagues are totally irrelevant. In the case of Attorney General of Lagos and Attorney General of the Federation, the Supreme Court assumed jurisdiction on the ground that the order, the directive, told the Minister of Finance to seize the funds of the local governments in Lagos was given by the President. An action of the federal government.
But the thing about this is that even if the lawyers have a perspective, I think last time we checked it, it's not a pronouncement of courts. It is that of the court that subsists.
Of course.
So their opinion can be the opinion.
No, but their personal opinions.
Now, even if, secondly...
The order is set aside. Yeah. It's binding on everybody.
So secondly, does the CBN have to direct banks to accept this? Well, since the court decision is already there.
Yes. Because the Central Bank has fixed, and the President have fixed 10th of February, and there was confusion. In fact, a statement was sent out, not credited to anybody, that the Central Bank will not comply with the order. So you would have expected the Central Bank to come out forcefully to deny, just like they are denying whether they have facilities to print money.
So I'm just a little curious. Can the central bank say that, because we also saw that yesterday there was a meeting between the president and the central bank governor. Yeah. Can they say that they're awaiting a directive from the president, given that it is the president who's been sued here, it is the president, or it is the federal government who's been sued, it is the president who has convened a Council of State meeting, it is the president who has taken all of these actions. And since it was the president and the central bank governor that had the initial meeting, where the decision was taken for the redesign of the Naira, can they argue that, well, we're still waiting for the outcome of what the president will say?
Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Mr. Abubakar Malami, on Friday last week, on the 10th, while everybody was confused, came out to say the government is going to comply with the order of the Supreme Court. And the government in this case includes the central bank. Because if you look at section 318 of the Constitution, it defines government to include officials of the government. And there are cases where the central bank has been said to be an agency of the federal government.
If that is the case, then should we really be waiting for another clarification? Some people will say then
unnecessary.
That should answer
It's
it.
unnecessary. It's unnecessary. If we want to embrace the rule of law, you don't need to make any clarification. But I said the central bank ought to have done that because of the statement allegedly credited to it.
So if that statement, that as it was made by the Attorney General, and then people are waiting for meetings, maybe for the president to say something, if that is unnecessary, so why all this confusion then?
You see, the president gave us 7 days.
To decide what he wants to do.
It's 10 days now. And everybody is confused. And that shouldn't happen in a country where there is proper governance. It shouldn't happen. Leave people guessing on a matter that has almost completely collapsed the economy. You put your money in the bank, as directed by the central bank. Go and drop all the old notes. When you drop the old notes, you will collect new currency notes. You cannot collect them because the banks have no money. And unfortunately, the central bank appears to have incited the public against the banks. Because people now troop to the banks. Or the banks initially said, go to your ATM machines. How many people have access to ATM machines in the country? Just like e-banking they are talking about. Oh, we have alternatives. You know, go and engage in e-banking or mobile banking. How many Nigerians? Why? You know, in Nigeria, you have an elite, a group that is so arrogant. We just substitute ourselves for the people. So because you are in Abuja, network, you know, you can get network occasionally to send money. You believe everybody in Nigeria does that. Do you know that in many of the states today, banks only operate in the state capital because of insecurity? And in some of those states, you may have to travel 300, 500 kilometers before you can get to the capital of the state. So we just disregard the demands of such citizens. And you're talking of e-banking, you know?
Yeah, but what do we also make of those who say that there are those who have tried to frustrate this policy? That the central bank, I think the central bank has also made an allusion to that. That there are those who, in spite of the fact that, yes, they've distributed not so much, they don't want to distribute as much money as they collected from the economy. That's the grand idea behind this. Not that they don't have. I think it's deliberately. They've deliberately, you know, refused to print as much as they have collected. And it's for a reason, because they want more people to migrate to the online platforms.
Within 100 days?
Yeah, but
for 223 million people?
But do you think that, don't you think that they would have calculated? No, they
didn't calculate anything.
Just a moment. What perhaps our Naira needs are for a day at a time, maybe for a month, and to say this one should be enough for the people at this particular point in time.
No, Makwe, unfortunately, this program was not thought out. Many Nigerians embrace the policy. Many Nigerians embrace the policy for the purpose of the election. Many Nigerians who had lost faith in the system, whereby we are ashamed, we are disgraced as a people, whereby you cast your vote, which is supposed to be a secret, etc. You have to show it to somebody who would then give you money. It was so shameful, so disgraceful. So when they came out with this policy, forget all the other excuses. People say, oh, this is a good one. But it was not well thought out. No, there was no committee to find out, you know, to learn from what happened to Nigeria in 1984, when the Buhari military junta changed the color of the Naira and gave Nigeria only 2 weeks. At that time, the population was 81 million people.
And there were no online platforms there?
Online platform. Nothing like that. And many people died, committed suicide, because they couldn't get their money. They couldn't get their money. Legitimately earned. But please, don't use the excuse of, because when you say, oh, the central bank has a plan to reduce money, that goes out there, we don't want people to sabotage. This, for me.
No, the thing is, they have just
those who have sabotaged.
Some people say that they have accused the banks of sabotage because the people who did not want to get this money.
How much have you given
politicians
to each bank? We have challenged the central bank.
Yeah.
Let the public know how much you have released to each bank, so that we can also ask them, can you justify what you did with the money? But if you run the country on the basis of opacity, secrecy, you just leave people guessing. And allegations and counter-allegations have been made. Banks are under threat. Some have had to close down because of the safety of their staff.
What do you make of state governors who, because, having met with the president, and then much later we hear Kano, Niger, I think Kano shut down some supermarkets that were not to accept, they were rejecting old notes. Niger, almost in the same scenario. What do you make of this kind of narrative?
The country is run as if we are under a military dictatorship. For goodness sake, where have those governors got the power to close down markets? Is there a court order? This is a country that is supposed to be governed under the rule of law. You can't just wake up and say, oh, I don't like what a few people have done, so I'm going to punish everybody who goes to a market. I beg your pardon. These governors, we should appeal to these governors.
Well, how about
appreciate that this country has to be operated in accordance with the law?
How about states that have said, look, security agencies arrest anyone who rejects the old notes? Is that lawful?
You see, again, if you are disobeying the orders of court, there is a procedure for enforcing the judgments and orders of court. Nobody is allowed to take the law into his hands. Nobody. 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 But once people just, it's like, a governor says, oh, you can't hold a political rally in my state. For goodness, where have you got the power? Or central bank now giving guidelines on election. Under what law? I've looked at the Electoral Act. The central bank is not mentioned at all. But you are now bringing out guidelines for the election. So there are problems. Confusion all over the place.
Let's bring in our colleagues from Lagos.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Mr. Falana, good to see you again. There's this conversation that, of course, along the lines of the same thing you're talking about. The law, the constitution of the country says, in section 287 sub 1 of the 1999 constitution says the decisions of the Supreme Court shall be enforced in any part of the federation by all authorities and persons, and by courts with subordinate jurisdiction to that of the Supreme Court. Now, this is the position of the Constitution. Now, I do not believe that the central bank is unaware of this. What I'm just wondering is, this is the situation. The Supreme Court has made a ruling. Although it would seem that because there is no timeline to it, the AGF could say, the federal government will abide by the ruling of the Constitution, of the Supreme Court. What now? It's been how many days after now? Situation is getting worse for many people, but above all, the rule of law hasn't taken full effect according to section 287 sub 1 of the 1999 Constitution. What are the consequences, and who has the authority to enforce the consequences?
The plaintiffs will have to take appropriate steps under the law. Because Nigerians fail to realize that we're in trouble when this regime did make the point in, I think, 2018, that certain court orders will not be obeyed on grounds of national security. And I think what they are doing this time again is to say, because of our monetary policy, we are not going to obey the order of the court. But as I did say earlier, this time around, the government created an exception And that was when the Attorney General of the Federation came out last Friday to say that the government will comply with the order. It couldn't have been otherwise. That is in line with the tenets of the rule of law. No government department, no agency of the government can act otherwise.
But Mr. Falana, the question then is, what's the timeline? I mean, as I said, it's been a few days.
The order took immediate effect. The order took immediate effect the moment it was issued on Wednesday last week. So that's the timeline. And until it is set aside by that court, it is binding on all authorities and persons in Nigeria.
It goes back to the same question that I asked Mr. Falana. Now that it has not been effected, it has not been complied with, what are the consequences of that? And who should enforce that?
The law will be invoked to deal with those who are deliberately flouting the orders of the court and sabotaging the rule of law in Nigeria. And for me, an example has to be made this time around so that nobody will feel that it's above the law in our country. And like the late Lord Denny once said in England, no matter how high you are, the law is higher than you.
Good morning, Mr. Falana. I'm wondering also about the governor's suit, to the Supreme Court. 3 governors and some other governors have joined the suit. Some are saying that if the governors are so concerned, about the Naira palaver, that shouldn't they demonstrate the same sense of responsibility in other matters, like education, for instance?
Well, that is neither here nor there. Because we're not even talking of education. There are 2 issues now that are bothering Nigerians. Fuel scarcity, Naira scarcity. The governors have chosen their own battle. That's the one that concerns them. They don't bother about whether you have fuel available, whether fuel is available in Nigeria, whether it's sold, at 5,000 naira per litre. That's not their business. Their business is money. So it's for Nigerians to also pick up the battle in other areas, But we are not going to say, because the governors didn't protest when ASWAD is strike, or because the governors are not even protesting now over fuel scarcity, we are therefore going to say, we are not going to really be worried over a lack of access to one's money in the banks.
Also,
Nigerians have to take care of the situation. And I think Nigerians are being made to be aware that governors have their own agenda, while members of the public have their own complaints.
Also, Mr. Falana, if the CBN can rely on, the point that is being argued that it wasn't joined or not named in the suit filed by the governors, the Council of State has met and issued an advisory. So the question now is, what is the weight of that advisory, and to what extent is it binding on the Apex Bank, to comply with? Because the CBN governor was present at that meeting.
The CBN governor was present to brief the body. It's not a member of to brief the body, i.e., we have challenges, please bear with us. And they say, gentlemen, what the country should do is, since you do not have enough money, you haven't printed enough money, allow the old and the new notes to be legal tender. And what is the problem with that? You still can enforce your restriction. In other words, nobody can collect more than 100,000 naira, which has now been changed to 20,000 naira. You will still make your point. But this business of punishing the entirety of a people for the alleged offense of a few should not be accepted in Nigeria. A few years ago, the government said, we are going to increase the pump price of petroleum products because criminals were smuggling the product. Why should I be punished? Because some people are using money to win elections. Now, mind you, we have 23 million people. I can predict that less than 40 million people will vote in this election. So why should everybody suffer? Because you want to deny some people access to fund. Again, for me, it confirms the collapse of the security architecture of the state. If you cannot mobilize the security forces to arrest and prosecute those who entice people with money on the day of election. Mind you, every polling unit, every police station will have a policeman at least, civil defense people, some of them even soldiers, EFCC and others. And if all of them cannot arrest criminal elements, please, you have no business punishing the entirety of Nigerians.
But Mr. Falana, could you explain to us Section 287(1) of the Constitution, where it says the decisions of the Supreme Court shall be enforced in any part of the Federation by all authorities and persons and by courts with subordinate jurisdiction to that of the Supreme Court? Doesn't it mean that citizens can arrest anyone who is resisting to collect
No,
orders?
it's not about arresting. What that law is saying is that all authorities and persons in Nigeria shall enforce, including the central bank, including the president, including the attorney general, and all of them, that we have been enjoined by the Constitution to enforce all the authorities, the orders and judgments of the Supreme Court.
Yeah, you know you are.
So if they fail to do that, the law will have to be invoked. No, the law will have, it's contempt of court.
You asked the last time about where Katumbi told you about how the Kano State government shut down a supermarket.
No, I said it's not right.
Yes. Isn't that at the same time trying to enforce what it is that the Supreme Court has said?
No, again, you have to follow the law to enforce. You have to follow the law. You cannot breach the law in enforcing the judgment of the court. The court has not said go and close down a market. Because that is collective punishment. There are people in that market, supermarket, who are not involved, in the alleged offense.
A supermarket is owned by an individual, and it will be the individual's instructions that the employees will follow.
Well, but I'm saying that the governor will have taken an action in court.
In furtherance of the Supreme Court's order?
Yes. So what about what we are assuming that this was correct, that some states maybe are now trading in CFA?
That's going on now. That's going on in Nigeria.
It's going on now?
Some are also trading in dollars. You are aware of that. Even in Abuja here. Yes.
But
I, as a central bank, if you want to demonetize this process, ask everybody who has dollars in their home to put the money in their domiciliary account. The central bank pretended he didn't hear that. I have had to sue the central bank. You cannot allow the dollarization of the economy. They are not worried.
Do they have jurisdiction over that? It's not their currency, is it?
No, the only legal tender in Nigeria is Naira and Kobo.
Indeed. So if people have other currencies, aren't they allowed to?
They are not allowed to collect rents in dollars, school fees in dollars in some schools in Nigeria. You are not aware.
Yes,
the central bank is aware. And the central bank is under a duty under the central bank.
That is true.
To arrest such people.
The point
and
is,
prosecute them.
Can they tell people who have it? Because they can say we're not using it. We use it only when we travel. Can the central bank mandate people to take such dollars and go and keep it in the bank?
By landlords that I want to collect dollars. There are schools in Abuja here, in Lagos and other places where students pay school fees in dollars. The central bank is aware.
Well, what a scenario we've got on our hands, but of course we'd like to hear from you what you think of this matter, because it's clearly not the last we'll get on this subject matter in the country. But we have to thank you very much indeed for coming on this morning. Mr. Femi Falana, Senior Advocate of Nigeria.
Okay.
We will be back in just a moment. Don't go away.
campaign train of the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Senator Bola Tinubu, lands at the Gombe International Airport and was received by his teammate, Senator Kashim Shettima, APC National Chairman, Senator Abdullahi Adamu, Governor Inuwa Yahya, and other party chieftains. Leaders of the party want the Northeast to acknowledge the efforts of the APC administration in rebuilding the region.
The APC administration helped us to discover oil here. The entire Northeast would have to reciprocate this gesture by voting for the APC in appreciation. APC is well grounded in Gombe State, and we will win all elections comfortably. I urge you all to vote for the APC at all levels.
An excited Tinubu applauds the people of Gombe State for the reception, promising to deliver dividends of democracy when elected.
You will see rapid development that will make Gombe State one of the richest in Nigeria or Africa.
The Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, who also addressed the supporters on behalf of President Muhammadu Buhari, pleads with the voters to support the party and its candidates at all levels.
President Muhammadu Buhari has declared support for Tinubu and all candidates of the APC in the forthcoming elections. His support is binding on everyone in this administration to equally support all candidates.
Nigeria!
Others in attendance were the Director General of the party's Presidential Campaign Council, Governor Simon Lalong of Plateau State, Governor Maima Labuni of Yobe State, Governor Babagana Zulum of Borno State, and Governor Muhammad Badaru of Jigawa State.
Well, as you can see there, Adamu Garba joins us this morning. He is Deputy Director, Media, Tinubu Shettima Grassroots Independent Campaign Council. Thank you for joining us this morning, Mr. Garba. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Thank you.
Yes, good morning. So, the natural question to ask you first is, how is the campaign going? There are those who are wondering whether or not your campaign has ended, or maybe some adjustments made to the schedule.
Our campaign has been going very fantastically well. You just played a report about our outing in Gombe State, one of the best outings so far that we have in the APC. And today we will be in Imo State. The new timetable has been revised and even distributed across to all the interesting parties within the campaign. Our campaign has been doing very, very well. I think there is no any political party in Nigeria that is campaigning as much as the APC, campaigning both to the top and to the down. You know, from the grassroots level, a lot of activities is going on. From the rallies and town hall meetings, a lot are going on. Our timetable is public, and that we have been moving around. I think this is one of the most interesting campaigns that the country has ever seen so far. Very energetic, policy-driven, and with a lot of excitement. So I think our campaign is going very, very well.
Well, one of the issues to address then would be, I mean, seeing that you are the in charge of grassroots mobilization and all, the question that one would want to ask is, how are you being received? You know, how is your campaign, your message being received by people, especially in the light of the cash crunch that's held many parts of the country and no less people in the grassroots?
To be very candid with you, the cash policy significantly affected some of our some of our support base at the grassroots level. We have been doing a lot of extensive work at the grassroots level. We put a lot of structures around all the polling units in the country. And, you know, there are a lot of canvassing, there are a lot of explanation that needed to be done about the need for APC to continue in the government. But the cash design policy was one of the issues that we faced, in addition to also the fuel scarcity. But we thank God, since this country is a country that is governed by law, and we have a Supreme Court judgment that came out very clearly, emphatically stating the fact that all Nigerians have to comply. Let's ease the process. Let allow the old Naira notes and the new Naira note. Let the policy be suspended so that there can be ease of the policy at the grassroots level. This has provided some succor, in addition to some of our courageous government and also governors in the states that have done active campaign to be able to assuage the people, not to see this as an affront towards them, but as a policy that is coming from the angle that might have been misinformed in terms of implementation. You just was on the studio with the learned Nigerian luminary, Chief Femi Falana, SAN, who was very emphatic and clear about the situation and some breaking of the law in terms of trying to force this policy as some form of dictatorship as opposed to the country governed by law. But the law was there. We have the respected elder statesmen in the country, in a council of state that sat together again and further reiterate the fact that this policy have to be eased out, that the money, the old currency and the new currency must be allowed to coexist as it is done all over the world, because this is the standard all over the world. You don't replace a country, a currency that has been existing for 20 years just overnight, within 90 days. It can't work that way, you know. So I believe the country's law, the country's governance system has checked that excesses, and now life is easing out. And for some people that are in the city centers, they know that they don't really need cash. They can be able to stay digital, although we have only 9% of the entire Nigerian population, the bankable population, that are using digital network. The remaining percentage, about 91%, are still using the cash system. So we can't just do this kind of revolutionary change within 90 days. It has to take some time. It has to take a framework. And the fact that it's a good policy, everyone appreciated that it's a good policy. Since we are aiming for APC...
Well, Mr. Garba, just 1 second, if you can hear me. Well, questions abound as to whether or not people see it the way you are seeing it, whether there's been any succor at any level at all, because I don't know how easy it has been for you to access any cash, be it old or new. So when you say then that the policy has significantly affected your grassroots mobilization, exactly what do you mean? I know that you said the governors are making inroads and all, but this policy came from a government, the federal government, that is led by an APC administration. So how do you market to the people to continue in government when this latest policy of your government is, as you say, anti-people?
You see, one of the good things with Nigerians is their capacity to listen and understand. And they know that government is a system. It's not just an individual. And it has different organs and institutions that run the affairs of the entire system. So we have a president, we have an independent body called Central Bank of Nigeria that is responsible for the monetary policies. And this policy framework has been a back and forth for some time. The fact that there are wrong approach to implementation means that it is a usual process where we experience mistake in the governance system of the country, and usually it's corrected. So yes, it is coming from the APC government. Yes, it is put on the throat of Nigerians to accept it. But I can tell you that what happened actually was the policy of the central bank. Because the central bank have constitutional right to do this, the central bank put an implementation framework that does not conform and did not allow the process to naturally take its course as in the course to the law. It was just like, look, You guys have to drop this your currency and come back to the new currency, even if you can have access to it. So it's not really a good policy, and that is why the government has taken proactive measures. The same APC government, meaning that another organ of the government, the Supreme Court of Nigeria, came and said, no, this is not the right thing. And then we have the highest advisory body of the country, the Council of State, coming together to say, no, this is not the right thing. Let's do it this way. And we have even Attorney General of the Federation who was on the press conference confirming and affirming the decision of the Supreme Court as supreme. So, and that it takes over every other thing as a law-abiding citizen, as an ordinary citizen who is not a lawyer, I should be able to abide by that law. So this is as simple as that. So it's not like the government brought in a policy and put it on the throat of the people. It's certain organ of government that come with the policy, and the same government also look through the law and make amends of this policy. No one is saying it's a bad policy, but it takes longer time for this kind of policy to work. So that is exactly the situation. And Nigerians' understanding was very, very good.
Mr. Garba, I wonder if it's that simple, because the policy requires the approval of the president. And we've seen in the last few days, consultations with organs of government. And also we've seen the president meet with the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria many times now. So I'd like you to speak to the theory that this policy is the result of the what some would say the voice of Jacob, but the hand of Esau that is playing out. Speak to that.
You see, I personally, from my own point of view, I don't think that there is one very strong conspiracy to fight the government within the government. Of course, there are some people inside that might not necessarily want APC to continue, maybe due to their own some interests they are trying to protect. But I don't think that it is much important for us to dwell on this matter other than the solution. Our candidate has made these things categorically clear that this is the stand of our campaign and this is the stand of the APC. We have governors in Nigeria, very well performing governors that understood the system, that have been part of the system for some time. They came out emphatically clear that this policy is not in line with what we accept and that it should be thrown away and then reorganized properly for proper implementation. Again, our candidate released even a roadmap, a very stable, clear roadmap in how these policies can be implemented without affecting ordinary people. So what is happening is that I'm seeing the APC spirit in the whole activity. Why? Because APC was founded on the idea of progressivism, whereby a common man will have a voice in the way his country is governed. So a situation whereby even the government of the APC did something that affected the common man, the same APC came out and said, no, we are for the common man. We won't allow any policy that we believe is anti-common man. So it's the APC spirit manifesting itself. To the best of my knowledge, this is the kind of party that Nigerians should trust. The party that will autocorrect itself. The party that will tell itself the truth. If something goes wrong, the party came out to be the first main advocate.
Pardon me, Mr. Garba. Let me come in there.
In Ogun State.
Pardon me, Mr. Garba. Let me just come in there. It's past 7 days, the deadline given by the president, for Nigerians to be patient with him until he resolves the issue. And the president is yet to address Nigerians, and the situation is yet to ease. There's still queues at the ATM. And the CBN also has not provided an explanation on how much exactly it has released into circulation per time. Should we then be surprised if after the presidential and governorship elections, the situation returns to normal? Will it support the view then that it was a deliberate rationing of the currency to deter vote buying and to help some candidate win? Mr. Garba, I guess we have an audio connection prop challenge with Mr. Garba. Mr. Garba, are you back? Hello, Mr. Garba. Confirm if you can hear me. It appears we have.
Well, I think it's more of a network issue. Since we are talking about Naira, it shouldn't.
Network is affecting the Naira as well.
Network is definitely affecting, so many people. The kind of experience that, people have been having, especially about that issue. It will be a very significant matter for the government to attend to as far as people are concerned. And it's a conversation that we need to take, and how people can move past this in consideration of who to vote for, I guess we'll wait to see. But let's take a short break. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. You're still watching the 2023 verdict, and we still have with us Mr. Adamu Garba, who is a member of the All Progressives Congress. Well, I know you have been taking questions on. Thank you for staying with us. I know you've been taking questions on the currency, which my colleagues were asking you earlier, but so far so good. I'm wondering, has the APC been able to put its house in order? Because so far, we've seen the president reiterate over and over again that he's now with your presidential candidate 100%. So for some people, it raises questions, because that sort of statement was something that ought to have been taken for granted. It looks like he's trying to send a message to some people within your party that the presidential candidate of your party has his full support. Why is this statement necessary, in your own opinion?
No, the president has and always have been with our presidential candidate. The president is the one of the main founders of the APC. So he, by blood, by sweat, by conviction, by ideology, is APC. There is no issue between our president, Muhammadu Buhari, and our principal and presidential candidate, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. There is no issue. They talk about 100% support for Asiwaju has nothing to do with trying to reaffirm that he is still there, other than the fact that it is just a political statement. When supposing you are aspiring and I am part of you, to go out and tell people that I am with you 100% means that I'm just making a normal political rhetoric of kind of emphasis, a very deep level of emphasis that there is no part or inch of me that is doing anything otherwise in order to, that is doing everything to sabotage but to support you. So this is exactly what it is. So we shouldn't be interpreting it as if the president is trying to, he wasn't there before, but now he just came back and was trying to reaffirm that he is now 100%. There has never been a period where the president is 99% or 98% or 50% of Asiwaju. He has always been 100% from Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. But we cannot be able to separate, we cannot be able to marry both governance and politics together. So the president decided to say, let me run the government while you guys run the campaign. At a certain point in time, I'm going to join you. And as he joined the campaign train, he is now making this normal rhetorical statement that, look, 100% we are all pro Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So this is just a normal political rhetoric. It has nothing to do with, he wasn't there before, he just came in now. So that was just a creation in the media.
How do we then marry that with this statement credited to the governor of Kaduna State that, you know, he's still in support of the president, but he has he has reservations about the quality of people around him who are helping to make decisions in his government. What do we make of that?
These are credible things, and it's not unnatural with any political transition period. When you are transitioning from an administration of one individual and administration of another, there are naturally some people within the existing setting that might not back the transition process. This has been happening. Even during Goodluck Jonathan period, there are some people inside his government that were against the government. You know, when he was aspiring, when you went back to during the President Yar'Adua's transition, the late President Yar'Adua, may God rest his soul, similar thing happened within his own party. We had the same issue during Obasanjo's trying to transition from 2003 to 2007. You know, that election, there was a saboteur, including his time. So we should not disconnect it from human nature, from normal political dynamic. It is a credible alarm that he raised, and to the best of my knowledge, it has helped to unbundle a lot of things for these kind of issues to Nigeria, to the fact that almost everybody, all Nigerians are aware of the situation, and so many actions have been taken to curtail the situation. You can see now clearly that the campaign is now having no issue. All the alarms have been sound, the recalibration has been made, and everything is moving well. So it was a credible alarm. It worked well. It is being put away beforehand. Let's go in. Let us not go with that kind of situation into election and get problem. So to the best of my knowledge, I think it's a credible action, and it worked magic for the party.
Well, Mr. Gaba, what do you think is the president's view about this? What do you think is the president's view about this current situation that Nigerians are grappling with, scarcity of the Naira?
I think the president is doing everything possible to bring this issue to the end. And you know very well that there was a Supreme Court judgment that came out, as I mentioned earlier, and there is a Council of State. This Council of State was summoned by the president in order to hear the opinion of the highest advisory body of the country. And a decision was being made, a press conference was issued to be able to make it clear to Nigerians that this is the situation. And I'm sure the president is working hard to fix this issue, because you can't run an election without money in the system. The whole election thing itself is an industry. So you must need money to be able to fund the logistics, to be able to fund the operations, to be able to fund every other part of election. Even the INEC, the electioneering body itself.
Yeah, you've just told us what he's doing, the kind of meetings he's having. But we want to hear, what do you think his view is? Because right now there seems to be a lot of confusion everywhere.
I trust the president. I believe in his love and patriotism for Nigeria, and I believe he wants free and fair election, and I believe he is in support of the APC, and I believe he also listens to the cries of Nigerians. So whatever decision the president is taking, I want to 100% believe is in complete interest of Nigeria and Nigerians, and he's doing everything possible to fix this problem.
That then means that at the moment, there isn't any position on his part at the moment.
Yeah, if there's any position from the president, it will be made public. But I'm sure, very, very sure, that something very important is being done to make sure that we solve the problem. But if there is any position that is known, of course, the spokespersons of the president are going to clarify to Nigerians.
Do you think the president owes Nigerians an apology? I mean, if we look at the number of videos that have gone around in terms of the difficulty that people have had trying to get access to their own money. I mean, it is unprecedented that people have to be on queues, people have to, in some instances, cry. People have had to strip themselves just to, get attention, to be able to get access to their own money. Don't you think that either the president or the central bank governor owe Nigerians an apology for the difficulty that they've had to go through as a result of this policy?
Yes, I believe the president acted in the best interest of Nigeria and Nigerians, and I believe he was advised to his conviction that this policy is going to work. You knew what happened after his meeting with the governors and the central bank. It was clearly stated that the president was informed, but the amount of information he had was not the same thing with what came out to be in that meeting. The CBN extracted about 2.something trillion out of the economy, but they are only able to print 300 billion. 300 billion cannot be able to par with 2 trillion. So it's a problem. So there is this gap. So what I want to say here is that the CBN have to be very public about its own distribution of money. In fact, since we have digital systems now, it is very important for us to know which bank has what quantity of money. There are so many messages that are circulating on WhatsApp that some banks are getting 10 million daily, some banks are getting 1 million daily. But all those kind of fake news or maybe information that are circulating.
Mr. Garba, while we all, continue to ask the CBN for more transparency, I'm talking about admitting that people have had to suffer as a result of this policy for no fault of theirs, especially the most vulnerable in society. Don't you think that this government, which you are a supporter of, owes the people an apology for this sort of policy which has inflicted pain on the most vulnerable of people in this country?
I believe, yes, Central Bank owe Nigerians an explanation properly and an apology and transparency. These things are very clear. This is the situation that we have in the country, and we need transparency. We need to understand how much goes to each of the banks so that Nigerians can be able to channel their own energies to go to where they need to access cash.
I find it interesting that you only talk about the central bank. What about the government that approved the policy? The president approved that policy.
You see, Maupe, government is an institution. It is governed by different organs. And sometimes when information comes to you, it will come to you with a perfect design. Almost every question you ask is been tackled, it's been answered. What will you do as the president? Will you have to go to the street and try to ensure that you plug the things yourself?
Well,
no.
Mr. Garba, when you keep talking when you talk about the CBN advised the president to do this, Mr. Mayfield advised him to do that, was Mr. Mayfield there in 1984 where the president took this same came about with this kind of policy at the same time? Yes, why are we blaming it on Mayfield now?
No. You see, at that time when the president took that decision, he meant well for Nigeria. And this same time, he also meant well for Nigeria. So there's no just saying about that. The policy itself was not a bad deal. We are transitioning from a normal cash economy to central bank digital banking system. This is something that globally it was acknowledged even in the last economy.
So the thing now is, why pass the buck? He took a similar decision in 1984-83 at the time, the same kind of policy. Why all of a sudden now we're not saying, oh no, CBN advised this? So it means he knows what this policy is about. He can't claim ignorance, can he?
That is why I'm telling you it's happening. No, that's what I'm telling you, that policy in itself is a very fantastic policy. It's a completely revolutionary policy that is going to help Nigeria to reposition us.
Is it helping us now? Is it helping us right now?
You said?
Is it helping us now?
Yeah, well, that's why I'm saying it's the implementation process that we have the problem. And the organ responsible for the implementation is Central Bank of Nigeria. So when there are issues from the Central Bank, Nigerians, the government, the system, the courts, and every system is asking CBN to ratify its issue.
All right, so now,
I think that we have a very stable system here.
If you say one is a good policy, but implementation is a challenge. Now, if that were the case, and the president sees that, okay, well, there's a little challenge with implementation, shouldn't he then have taken the decision? Because if he has, you would know his position. You would have said it here, but you haven't said it because you don't know it. He hasn't taken any.
No, Chamberlain. Let me explain. I told you that the president had a series of meetings with the governors. He had meetings with the central bank, attorney general. He had
What's the outcome? What's the outcome of the meeting?
And at the end of each of these meetings, a decision has been taken and a press conference is released. They are all in the public domain. So to say that the president has not taken any stand on this issue is grossly unfair to the president, simply because he has been very active in trying to bring this issue to a perfect closure.
So what is his stand?
He's still working hard to ensure that this issue is attended to. So the fact that there was no categorical, in fact, to me, there is even a categorical statement. The categorical statement was, look, pump more money, central bank. If you cannot do that, then make sure that you also recycle the old currency.
Was that the president or the Council of State?
This is Council of State. Who is the chairman of the Council of State? Is the president.
So is the
whatever decision that came out from the Council of State have to the president, in his natural consultative approach to governance, decided to bring the Council of State to hear their own point of view. And after doing that, he decided to issue a statement from the Council of State under his chairmanship. And as the chairman of an institution, it means I take responsibility for the decision.
Well, I heard you asking that, you know, the banks and the CBN should publish how much has been given. So if the CBN, okay, first of all, do you think that that directive, even though NCS is advisory to the country, Do you think that is being heeded to by the CBN, what you describe as the directive by the president? Are they obeying it?
I think personally they are obeying it because it is a bank. It is governed by the law, and the law clearly and the executive arm of the government clearly issued a statement. I'm sure the CBN is working on it. It is it's not this kind of policies are not something that you can just wake up one day and just get it working. And also to reverse it takes a process, takes a procedure. There are a lot of checks and balances. There are a lot of bureaucracy that bring the policy to action. Of course, for you to be able to rewind it and recalibrate it to suit the current realities, there are a lot of procedure. So we have to give a little bit of excuse, but I am very, very, very certain that the central bank is not going to go against the decision of the president.
If you say that they are obeying it, help us out then. Give us the figures. How much have they released ever since the president spoke?
I'm sure if you direct this question to the central bank, they will be able to let you know.
No, I'm directing it to you because you say you think they are obeying it. So you tell us.
Yes, that is why I say that we demand for transparency ourselves from the CBN to understand how the money is getting distributed. But I am not going to sit here and believe that CBN is not doing anything about it. I am not going to believe that. I believe that there are a lot of wonderful people inside the central bank that are doing their job. So the only thing is this: let them be more transparent, let them be more forward with Nigerians, let us know what is happening. Simple as that. Similar to the way you're asking questions, I'm asking questions too. But I don't want to altogether believe that they must do their hands. Nothing.
Looking at the confusion, I mean, and I'm not the one just using these words. On the front pages of the dailies this morning, it was also reported that, you know, confusion is a state where a lot of Nigerians are. Banks are refusing to hold money, etc. Looking at the confusion that has trailed this policy under the administration of this government, which is headed by the president, who is a member of your party, how do you intend to tell Nigerians to vote your party again, considering just how it is handled? And this last one of these important policies which your government has come up with. How do you convince Nigerians that your party is capable of governance?
It is very clear. This is the party that have carried Nigerians away from the mismanagement, corruption, confusion, and destruction of the PDP, and now brought it back in line by giving massive infrastructure investment, massive reforms, and reorganization of the entire system, and putting Nigeria on the path to prosperity and growth over a period of 7.5 years. The same Nigeria, the same party. How can we talk about the question of governance of this particular party? Now, the party, in its effort to bring about the revolutionary policy, you know, still better the causes of the Nigerian public, you know, had implemented it, but it now had a little bit of issues in the system. So the party is also self-organizing itself to ensure that this works. And the issue, the concern and the alarm was raised from within the party. We didn't even wait for the people outside to say no. It is our principal that began to say, look, this policy is not right. And we have senior leadership of our parties, from Governor Ganduje to Governor Nasir El-Rufai to Governor Yahya Bello to Governor Motawale, and several governors in our party came out and said, no, we disagree with this policy. How can you compare this very democratic, very people-centered party with any other political party in Nigeria? I bet you if this policy will have been implemented by the PDP, I'm sure by now they will have been arresting every other person that is talking against it. But in our own case, we were able to organize it within, we were able to contest it within, we were able to correct it, and Nigerians are watching. Nigerians know what we have done. Nigerians knew that we stood by them.
I don't know whether you saw the statement of. I don't know whether you saw the statement of the Nigeria Governors Forum that talked about how people's monies are being confiscated, and how this policy is capable of throwing the economy into a recession. I mean, when you say it's just a little problem, it's a problem capable of throwing an entire economy into into a recession. I don't know whether you understand the weight of what has happened or what has gone wrong with this policy. So if Nigerians are to, make a decision based on this one last policy, I don't know how many more, how much room the president has before May 29th. But if they're to weigh their decisions based on this before the elections, there are people who will wonder whether or not how your party will fare come February the 25th or even March for the governorship elections that will come up sometime in March.
That is why I said, yes, there is a policy mishap that has happened in an effort to make sure that the country become better and the monetary system become more strengthened, more empowered as we move into the digital environment of banking system. But then the policy implementation went wrong and the party itself auto-corrected it. The party itself auto-corrected itself. So when you look at this, and Nigerians are kept informed at every point, from north, west, east, and south, Nigerians are aware of what is happening. So Nigerians have no party to trust other than the APC, because it's only the APC that cares for them. It's only the APC that is going to confront whatever that goes against them, even from within. There is no better system like that, and Nigerians are trusting us much more. If you go to the street now, Nigerians know where to point their blame at. Nigerians also accepted the fact that APC is doing this thing in the best interest to better the life of ordinary citizens. But since there is an issue...
All right, Mr. Garba, I think you should go, you said we should go to the street. Maybe we should try the banks. I think that's where a lot of Nigerians are right now, waiting for the money to get to them in the bank. So maybe you go to the banks and hear what they have to say. You get a direct feedback. I was
actually in the bank myself. I was in the bank yesterday trying to get just 20,000 Naira cash, and it was very difficult, though I was able to get it, but I have to follow queue. So this is what ordinary Nigerians are facing. All of us are facing these challenges. But I'm telling you, Nigerians are aware of the source of the problem, and Nigerians feel that APC has done everything to fix this problem.
Thank you, Mr. Garba.
APC, and Nigerians know that
we had to anchor at this point. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Adamu Garba, Deputy Director for the Independent Campaign Council of the APC. We will be back in just a moment. Stay with us.
My high expectations of your leadership, particularly in relation to the provision of requisite police security that will engender not only just a stable security space ahead of the general election, but to guarantee the credibility of the exercise. In this task, I call on the Inspector General of Police and indeed all law enforcement agencies that will be complementing the police in the election security process to note that the eyes of the nation and the global community will be on you all. My pledge to bequeath to the nation a democratic culture in which the police will not only be apolitical and impartial during the 2023 general election, but in which the process will be peaceful and secure, and the outcome truly reflective of the free will of the citizens. This vision can best be achieved through an efficient police force, and I am delighted that the force leadership is advancing my vision in this regard.
Presidential candidate of Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, is visiting some markets in Lagos State to canvass support of market men and women ahead of the February the 25th presidential election. And from what we see so far, it seems it has the backing of some of these market men and women here.
The presidential election is in a fortnight, and Mr. Peter Obi is shifting his campaign to the grassroots with his rally for support from traders in Lagos. Computer Village is his first port of call, and the traders turn out en masse as part of the unscheduled visit.
Anybody who doesn't vote for Obi this time is going on slave. Obi is for workers. Let us, when Yoruba marry, if we say, if your wife is not good, go and marry another. Let us try another.
We need somebody like Peter Obi that is very young, that will do something for the country, that will help the nation. It's what we want for this country. Yes, I have my PVC. I'm supporting Obi. It's the first thing I'm going to drop my PVC through.
Whatever the turnout is at the Computer Village, the number is even much more at Ladipo Spare Power Market in the Oshodi area of the state. The excitement on the faces of the traders is unmistakable, and they say their support is not for any immediate benefit.
He understands many things he can do for us. We want someone who will support us, someone who will make us achieve more good things in the country. Not someone that we don't understand the mind of the people.
Mr. Peter Obi's promise is to not dampen the hope in these people should he become president.
As I go around Nigeria, I see millions of Nigerians who are in pain and suffering, yet have all the hope for a country that will come to their aid. And my wish that I have opportunity of salvaging the situation.
The on days turnout, which the traders claim is the least they can do to demonstrate their support, the promise to come out on Saturday, February the 25th, 2023, which will be much more important. Timothy Crown.
Welcome back. It's still the 2023 verdict, and that's our next port of call as we welcome the spokesperson, Obi Dati Presidential Campaign Council, Mr. Dele Farotimi. Mr. Farotimi, thank you for joining us on the 2023 verdict.
Thank you very much for having me. Good morning.
Indeed, we've seen your presidential candidate traverse markets over the weekend. It was, his appearance at Alaba International Market, and then we've seen his visit to Computer Village and Ladipo Market. And, the show of support for your candidate is unmistakable. Undoubtedly, the party will be buoyed by, this turnout. What are we to expect in relation to that, from the National Secretariat's hosting of your candidate later today?
The first thing that we must understand is that given the fact that we have no structures and we have only about 4 children sat in a room somewhere tweeting away, from time to time, our candidate has had a need to remind those who are not on Twitter that they still have votes, which they must necessarily cast on the 25th of the month. This has, of course, seen us transversing the nooks and crannies of Nigeria. Mr. Gregory Peter Obi went as far as go to places where nobody has gone to campaign in years, places like Biu, places like Mubi, because there are Nigerians living there. So wherever Nigerians are, wherever they might live, before you might be related to someone, you must be able to see and feel their afflictions. So Mr. Obi has been going everywhere Nigerians are, however inconvenient or even sometimes pretty unsafe, like his trip to southern Borno, for instance, where he was told expressly by security people that they were unwilling to follow him because these were bandit and Boko Haram territory that they considered unsafe. And these are parts of Nigeria where Nigerians in their millions, thousands, they still live. They have to eke out a living in the parched land that has been abandoned by government itself. So he went to those places just as he went to Alaba Market, as we have pointed out, and just as he equally went to Computer Village. And he will continue. These are part and parcel of the attempt to continue to let Nigerians understand the critical nature of the coming election. I was, perhaps, I wouldn't call it privileged, but let me just say that I was, well, constrained to sit down and watch the performance of the man who is speaking for this current government and the one that is looking to take over from it. And these performances are sufficient to educate Nigerians as to the fact that elections have consequences. And I thank channels for giving us this despite all the network challenges you had in the course of that. So essentially, we are focused, both the candidate, ourselves speaking for him, average Nigerian who understands what are at stake, the things that are at stake in this election. We're simply focused on taking our messages to Nigerians. Elections have consequences. You must vote for competence above ethnicity and religion. And yes, records matter. We have a 7.5-year record, almost 8 years record now, of course, of General Buhari. What we've watched this morning, the buck passing, the illustration of dysfunction in its worst form, where you are having, look, it's almost like we're sat on top of a refuse dump where we've all lost our senses of smell. So when people come around and as bubbles begins to repeat nauseating things that should not be normalized to the point where they excuse it, dice it, cut it, Nigerians must become wiser. These are our own messages in the days. So people will be doing transfer seasoning in the political market.
Let's stick with the Labour Party before we begin to go to national issues. Where you've recorded gains, there are also some records of losses. We've read in the papers how Southwest leaders have jettisoned your party. Their concern is that your party has no support base required to win the election. In fact, one of the quotes from one of the leaders of the party is to the extent that Labour Party cannot get up to 1,000 votes. How much damage has that done to your chances of harvesting votes in the southwestern region of the country?
The first thing that is embedded in the question you have asked is a complete misunderstanding of the nature of the Obidati movement. You have a complete misunderstanding of it. The so-called Southwest leaders of the Labour Party who have decamped in what I was already explaining is the transfer market in the political season. Question you have to ask yourself is this: if somebody has come out to tell you that, oh, the Labour Party, that they are the Southwest leaders, is incapable of delivering more than 1,000 votes, then that tells you the quality of persons that they themselves are. The Labour Party of today is not the Labour Party of 6 months ago, before which all these ones had positioned themselves as career politicians who sell party tickets. That explains the problem the Labour Party has across the length and breadth of the Southwest, particularly where Jagaban PLC has always planted these people so that they act as surrogates in election time. When somebody has lost the party ticket, either that was in AC, ACN, or in this APC, they conveniently fly to the Labour Party of yesteryears. But that Labour Party is already giving way to a new Labour Party. So what the Labour Party you see today is not unlike the old NADECO, where people with disparate interests but who share the same strategic objectives come together because there is a pressing need to effect change, to change the direction of the country. We've all had to perhaps scale down our expectations in some ways, learn to, because we cannot build coalitions. How do you go about the business of having a revolution? And make no mistake about it, the Nigeria we have today is one that demands that we must give up our personal interest, make sure that we focus our attention and our entire energies on rescuing the country. We can have our ideological squabbles later on, but that is as it relates to the Labour Party of today. The persons you are talking about, who are they? Exactly how many people have they? I don't even know the name of a single one of these persons. I am a typical case in point. I speak for the Obi presidential campaign. I'm not a member of the Labour Party. I'm a member of Afenifere. Afenifere is an integral part of the Obi presidential project. Now, in the Southwest, Afenifere says it is speaking for a presidential candidate. The same Afenifere that some people who are so desperate to gain his endorsement that they were busy acting movies in Akure. That same Afenifere now says he's standing behind a person, and that person is the person it considers worthy of support in this electoral cycle, and it places its credibility and demands for restructuring of Nigeria, which is a lodestone of Yoruba demand. And it then says that this is the person that we are supporting, and then you are talking about some Southwest leaders of Afenifere and of Labour Party.
Of Labour Party. Mr. Motosho, it's interesting that you don't know these individuals. They are members of your party. There's a certain Omotosho that is named in the report. But if you don't know, if you claim not to know these individuals, we'll have to take your word for it as one of the leaders of the Labour Party. But you talked about rescuing. You talked about rescuing Nigeria. Let's make progress.
I'm sorry. You misrepresented the fact, and I need to correct you. Number one, I have made clear I am not a member of the Labour Party. I am a member of Afenifere. Afenifere is part of the Obi presidential project. Let's be clear about that. Now, I equally made efforts to let you understand that in the Obi presidential project, there are several interest groups whose overarching interest is the salvation of Nigeria and the liberation of its people, who have come together. This is not only Afenifere, this is PANDEF, this is Southern and Middle Belt Leaders Forum, this is Ohaneze Ndigbo, and this is all the separate and different nationalities that has been meeting under SMBLF, coming together to say, this is the person we believe will fulfill our aspirations. These are not persons who are ordinarily members of the Labour Party, but they've come into the Labour Party because that is where Obi is, and that is where we've all found a political platform for the actualization of the emergency situation in which we are, which is rescue this country.
So, Mr. Farotimi, does that then say, just a quick one on that, does that then say that there is a political arrangement of sorts between the Labour Party and the Afenifere and PANDEF and the rest of it that you just mentioned? Is there any kind of arrangement, formal or informal?
Between who and who?
Between Afenifere and all of that and the Labour Party, because Mr. Obi is not on the ballot as himself. He is on the ballot as a candidate of the Labour Party. So what's the arrangement?
Look, as I see, if you are working in a coalition, there must be a common interest. The common interest for everybody, including the Labour Party, which is working in tandem with the Obi campaign, is that Nigeria needs to be rescued. Now, that is without prejudice to the fact that there are operatives within the Labour Party itself who had been there long before Obi became a candidate of the party, and who had been there for reasons best known to themselves, perhaps positioning themselves for today's political transfer season. Because I cannot understand how a person stays within a party. He says it's the South. They say they are the Southwest leaders, and the same persons come out to say that they have a good candidate like Peter Gregory Obi to sell, and they are so impotent at doing this job that they self-indict themselves and tell you that they can only come up with 1,000 votes.
Mr. Farotimi, I'd like you to please, conclude on that arrangement. What's the political arrangement between these interest groups that you talk about?
There is no political arrangement. That's the point I'm making to when you talk about a political arrangement, you're suggesting that these people have some special interest over and above that of the average Nigerians. No. We all identified over 2 years ago that there are critical issues plaguing Nigeria and that these issues needed to be tackled. We came out with our position publicly. I'm talking about the Southern and Middle Belt Leaders Forum, which comprises of Ohaneze, Afenifere, PANDEF, and the Middle Belt Forum. All four, we came together over 2 years ago and we were speaking publicly to the need for power shift. After a point, we also came together, we spoke to the need for power to shift for the sake of equity and justice to the southeast. All this time, nobody was focusing on Peter Obi. So we had already taken a position, and when we found the person who fit the bill in relation to competence, who fits the bill in relation to equity, who fits the bill in relation to justice, who fits the bill in understanding the need to take another look at the governance of this country and make it work for the Nigerian people, we as a collective supported him. He was in Labour Party, so of course, we went into the party with him, not necessarily as card-carrying members of the Labour Party, but in recognition of the fact that the Labour Party presents an opportunity and a platform for the actualization of these ideals that we had been speaking to all these years. Good. If he had remained in the PDP, maybe not, we may or may not have supported him. He may or may not be the ones we would even have been supporting. But today, based on the realities, the objective realities on the ground, he is in the Labour Party.
Okay, well, let's speak to a hypothetical Peter Obi presidency. What would be the role of an Afenifere, of a PANDEF and all of that in the political arrangement or governance arrangements? Since you went in there because, as you said, there is an interest about rebuilding Nigeria.
It's a fair question to ask. Our belief is that we would operate, and I have come out publicly to say this, even on your channel, we are not in this looking for political posts, but we are in this believing that Nigeria needs and requires change. So if a Gregory Peter Obi should win the presidency, we intend to hold him to each and every one of the words he has given to the Nigerian people in relation to the governance of Nigeria.
The question then is how will that happen? Yes.
The highest office in the land in this country today, or in any country that will progress, is the office of the citizen. We are citizens of Nigeria. We have not done a political deal saying give us this number of offices or We intend to remain in our space as citizens of Nigeria and hold him accountable to his words. He has given his words in public. He is the most interviewed presidential candidate in the history of this country. He has placed himself out there. He's gone out there. He has words that he has spoken in the public spaces. These words must count for something. In speaking those words, he wasn't speaking to Afenifere or to Dele. He was speaking to me, Dele Parotimi, when he's speaking on your channel, when he's speaking to the people in your clip, in the market, he's speaking to Nigerians. It is the words that he has given that we intend to hold him to. And if he fails to deliver on those words, it is our intention to make sure that we oppose him or anyone else who do not live by their words that they are freely given to Nigeria.
Speaking of his ability to deliver, I'm glad you situated, the context of the participation of PANDEF, Afenifere, and the other groups in the identification with the Labour Party and its presidential candidate. And you talked about, the need for equity and justice to, have the presidency emerge from the Southeast this time around. In relation to that, some would say that you would know what a person would do by what he had done in the past. And some would say in relation to that, your candidate's exit from APGA and the lack of consensus in the Southeast as we speak today on a Southeast presidency doesn't particularly give one cause for optimism about, his ability to unify Nigeria or even the possibility of his emergence on the ticket.
You are falling victim to the danger of the one-sided narrative. In the first place, Nigeria is a place where political parties have not developed along the lines of ideology. It's always been that political parties, unfortunately, in Nigeria today, are essentially platforms for the contestation of elections. Now, Mr. Gregory Peter Obi wanted to be governor of Anambra State to make a change. The PDP was the behemoth running riot in the political space in the Southeast and had been in place since 1999. ABGA was a minority party, but he joined that party because that was the party that offered the platform for engagement with the people. He gained power as an ABGA governor, and he remained an ABGA governor until the end of his tenure. Now, in ruling in Anambra State, he had to deal with a House of Assembly completely peopled by PDP people. I will leave out that history because it's not relevant, but you know it. He survived that. He spent his time working for the people, and he built a legacy of integrity and service. That is the basis upon which the like of me can engage with him today. Now, when you speak to the fact that there are divisions in the Southeast, that there might be no unanimity of support for him, I'll remind you that I'm a Yoruba man. My mother is from Fiditi in Oyo. My father is from Imesile in the Ijesha land. Nobody is more Yoruba than me. And yet, I am here speaking clearly, particularly against the candidacy of the person called Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Let's be clear, this is not about tribe. It's about Nigeria. The fact that not enough of us have owned Nigeria, but more of us have owned our tribes and our religion is the reason why Nigeria is in the mess that it is in today. The Southeast is not going to be monolithic. There will be people in the Southeast who will not support Peter Obi, and that's their prerogative. There would also be people in the Southwest who will not support Bola Ahmed Tinubu. That's our prerogative, and that's as it should be. There has rarely ever been a point in time where there has been a tribal consensus in this third republic about leaving power for anybody. We are not concerned about tribal consensuses. We took our position based on the justice and equity of the situation. What the Southeast does as a bloc is entirely up to the citizens who comprises of the Southeast. We have taken our own positions based on what we believe is best for Nigeria. We believe our Indigo brothers and sisters would equally do what is necessary on the 25th of February. But we have taken our positions based on conscience and conviction.
It will be interesting to see how that plays out, how much support he will garner across board, to see that unanimity that you talk about, either it be in the Southeast region or the Southwest region. There are other dimensions to the conversation, Mr. Farotimi, but we must leave it here. And thank you profusely for your time and thoughts on the program. Mr. Adele Farotimi.
And if you notice, we didn't have any network issues.
Yes, we did not. Mr. Adele Farotimi is the spokesperson Obi Dati Presidential Campaign Council. Yeah, there's more to talk about on the verdict 2023, but that'll be after the break. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Mr. Atiku Abubakar, arrives at Calabar Airport. He is welcomed by an indigenous cultural troupe. The campaign train then moves to the UJ Suene Stadium for the rally. Here also, the PDP presidential candidate is entertained. The campaign kicks off with the PDP leaders in the state promising to work for the party's victory while expressing confidence that the presidential candidate, Mr. Atiku Abubakar, will deliver dividends of democracy.
We know that you are a friend to Cross River State, and that indeed in Cross River State, in spite of all these seeming challenges, we remain a PDP state.
Let me tell you that The solution is in your hands. When you vote right, you will discover that in a short 6 months, insecurity will be a thing of the past.
Women and youths are assured of their inclusion in the government that the PDP plans to establish.
Atiku is going to drive hunger away from our land. Atiku is going to educate our children. Atiku is going to educate the youth. Atiku has promised the women and youth 60% in his government.
Many people are preaching division in this country, but we know that an Atiku Abubakar is a man who unites all shades of opinion in Nigeria and ensure that we run an inclusive government. And I promise you,
optimistic of securing the support of voters in Cross River State, Mr. Abubakar promises them of both economic and infrastructural development.
When I was vice president and the issue of development of Calabar Port came, I gave my complete and total support so that the Calabar Depot can be constructed for the benefit of the people of Cross River State and the South and Nigeria in general. And I promise you, if you vote for PDP, for the president and governorship, we will work together with your governors, your legislators, to make sure that we implement this policy which has been grounded by APC. Since APC came, that project is dead.
The successful completion of the Cross River campaign leaves the River State as the only state in the South-South region that is yet to host PDP presidential campaign. However, with the controversy between Governor Nyesom Wike and the party's leadership, it remains uncertain if the party will be able to hold its rally in the state. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
All right, yes, indeed. Turning attention now to the People's Democratic Party, we've got Mr. Dimeji Fabiyi here, who is the Deputy Director, Volunteer Management for the PDP's Presidential Campaign Council. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you very much. Thank you for bringing me.
Well, yeah, you know, the other parties are also striving for the same things. Much as, yes, we've seen your campaigns, which we'll talk to in a moment. But before that, has the impression of the party about other political parties' chances as topping the PDP from winning the elections changed?
Well, thank you very much. If there's anything PDP has done is to be focused on Nigerians, regardless of what other party or other people feels about, you know, or people feel about what other parties are doing. We were not disturbed about that, and we believe that we don't have to take anybody, you know, for granted. We need to go into election and see if, yes, we are going into an election with members of oppositions. We have so many opposition parties that have fielded presidential candidates. So we are taking them as they've come. So for us, we are going into an election, and we are doing everything that is required to go into an election, and most importantly, to winning.
Members of the opposition, you are in the opposition, aren't you?
We are running, so we see every other person as our opponent in this context.
Okay,
that's what I'm saying.
In that context,
in terms
of how you use the word.
Yes.
Because it is the leading party or the ruling party that usually uses the word opposition.
They are opponents in this election.
I just want to clarify if you're running as a party already in government.
No. They are opponents, yes. They are opponents.
Okay, so what exactly is the lead thrust? One of the things I have heard your presidential candidate emphasize is unity, and I think our last guest, Mr. Dele Farutimi, made reference to how the presidential candidate of the Labour Party intends to, you know, draw everyone together after the elections. Your presidential candidate has acknowledged that, you know, we're not exactly living up to that motto on our coat of arms: unity and faith, peace and progress. And unity is one of the things that he's big on. How does your presidential candidate intend to bring about unity or to make it stronger after the elections?
Well, thank you very much. His Excellency Atiku Abubakar is one man that really understands this country. You cannot take it away from that. Far and beyond any other person running for presidency today. And I can defend this clearly. He has been there as a vice president at that level, so he understood I was there. He understood the dynamics and the diversity of this country.
But do you have to be vice president to understand that?
Do I do what?
Does a person have to be a vice president or a former vice president
Some
to
people
understand?
if you are not there, you may not really understand how deep the dynamics and diversity of this country are. And for you to be there, even being a governor in the state, you need to understand, the things that play out. So let me just quickly address what Marco said. So for him, he has said about 2 to 3 things that would help him in bringing Nigeria back. Number one is restructuring. One of the biggest challenges we have in this country is the lopsided structure in this country. And he said, when I come in, I'm actually going to address that frontally with the help of the National Assembly. And that's why when I look at other candidates talking about restructuring, I ask them, how do you want to do it? One, even when you have a situation, when you have the total control of the National Assembly, it's still difficult for you to get something through. But Atiku has the capacity to do that. Through the restructuring, he's going to bring about the unity that this country really needs. And number 2 is, when it was Vice President or President Obasanjo, the government at that time did something. Because we came in from military rule, and there were lots of division in the country. What the government did then was to bring about what they call national government. And it doused the tension completely in the country at that time. I was in government, so I understood all of this. So that it's not going to be only PDP people that will be in government. We're going to bring in people that we know that have the capacity to help this country heal, to help this country come together into government, into governance. The moment he does that, everything will be okay.
And they end up joining your party?
They don't have to, because people that came from the AD, the ANPP, didn't not all of them joined, but those who are highly principled, those who believe that this is about this country, they contributed their own quota and they left. So it's clear. Atiku is very clear about what he wants, and the party has the support of the party in this. And Nigerians are beginning to see that. I think it's only this man that really has what it takes to bring this country.
If you could explore that a little further.
Yes.
Is it going to stop at that, or will there be something to, in a manner of speaking, institutionalize that so that we don't have a zero-sum nature of our politics, where winner takes all?
Of course. That's why he said he will be working closely with the National Assembly members, because most of these things will have to be backed by the law, and the constitution must be tampered with a little bit so that you institutionalize it, then nobody comes tomorrow and run. And if there's anything Atiku is coming to do, is to ensure that our institutions are in good stead, our institutions are in place. This is because these first 4 years is going to be so intense that even if you're in that government, you have to work hard to be able to meet his target. We believe we are going to do that for Nigerians. Nigerians they're waiting for us actually for this.
So what is different about this campaign? Because he's been there in campaign before 2015, 2019, and of course he also believed he was going to win. Now he also believes he's going to win. So what is different about that belief now and then?
See, a lot of things are. We all know where Nigeria is now. No thanks to the APC leadership, APC government. Nigerians are looking for something different, and Nigeria are waiting for that person that really have the strength, the tenacity.
All these other candidates say they are also bringing something different.
I am telling you about what my candidate can do, and the stories are out there. Nigerians know. It goes beyond being a former governor or being a governor somewhere. No, it goes beyond that. Nigeria is a serious business than that. So when somebody comes out and says, because I've been a governor, and that gives me it doesn't work that way. No one, you must be able to identify people that can actually make you achieve your goals, and which Atiku is tested and known for.
But can the APC candidate also lay claim to that? Because if he's governed the state that has about 30% of the country's resources of states put together.
Chamberlain,
the resources.
Why do you want us to go into this? I don't want to.
No. We're looking at,
because it's
if it's the same narrative, the narrative exists in other parties too. So we're trying to find out what is different.
No. Let me tell you something. There's a lot of difference. Because you govern a state. Okay, and we saw what has become the state that you claim you govern. During your time, I told you, I said, go and verify. During the time of Asiwaju as a Lagos State governor, he only did 2 roads in Lagos. Lawantin Road, and Ikoton Igodo, this Governor's Road. Go and check it. It's on national. I'm saying, go and check it. He built 2 schools, 2 millennium schools at the cost of 5 billion. Go and check it. This is on national television.
So what about Lekki?
Who did Lekki? One thing is for you to conceive the idea, and another thing for someone to come and he didn't do it. So I don't want to go into this. I wish Asiwaju well. You know what I'm telling you, because this is the focus of our campaign, is we are taking our messages to the people. Okay. And that is what you see Atiku and PDP doing. And that's what we are going to do. And Nigerians are listening to us. They want to hear us talk, and we're talking to them.
Let me take you up first on the issue of restructuring, which you have raised. You said that only your candidate, because he understands this country, will be able to pull off restructuring even through the National Assembly. What item, because everybody bandies this word restructuring, and after elections we're told that, restructuring has 1,000 meanings. If you talk to 1,000 people, you get 1,000 definitions. What precisely in restructuring is your candidate looking at?
Well, thank you very much. Number one, for you to know how serious this is about, this is Atiku, this is taking this restructuring thing. He had written a book that had been circulated across the country, even to media houses, for anybody to go through and read and understand what he was talking about restructuring.
I don't know that our media house got it, but
so it was widely circulated.
Able to read.
Yes, okay, I'm coming there. The first thing he needs to do is to tamper with the constitution of this country, which is to move some items from what do we call them?
From the concurrent or from the exclusive list?
Yes, because we need to devolve powers to the states.
Items such as?
The moment you do that, okay, for Atiku, it's about creating a lean government. Federal government has no business in certain things. So Atiku said, my own restructuring will limit federal government to things like defense, internal affairs management, the financial regulation, and about 3 or 4. Every other thing should go to state. But federal government has no business in agriculture. It should be to the state. Federal government, even education, is just to run the policy and let the state run. These are some of the things that Atiku wants to do.
That sounds like a lot more.
Then even security.
Just a moment. It sounds like a lot more responsibility. Where are the states going to get the funds for it?
That's exactly what we're saying. Now, you're going to control there are resources from the states. States, they don't have to labor, they have to work hard because you have resources in the state. You tap your resources, whatever you make out of it. That is why the constitution is going to be tampered with, so that whatever you make, what do you call it, a donation to the center government. It's possible. This is what Atiku wants to do. We need a lean federal government. We need the state to grow at their own pace. Control your resources. Make remittances, certain percentages to the central. You see that the tension will be less. There won't be any problem. Everybody will be okay. This is what Atiku is talking about.
Some people say,
and Nigerians are keen into this. Let me tell you something more. Because people want something new. It goes beyond the normal rhetorics. Okay, look at these policy choices. All these things have to be taken care of in the Constitution. And that is why we need a president like an Atiku who have the buy-in, the support of the National Assembly and the control of the National Assembly to be able to get this. You can't tell me, INEC just came up with the list of national, the candidate for national office. I'm talking of now the presidency, the Senate, and federal house. Go and check it. How many of these constituencies do the Labour Party has candidates? Check it. Wow. So how do you want to run policy of government? How do you want to run your policy? How do you want to drive your policy?
It's interesting that this Labour Party you mentioned as your key rival.
Not the APC. Everybody is key rival. I just use that as an example. Everybody is key rival. NNPP is a key rival. SDP is a key rival. That is the way PDP is taking it.
Okay, now let's take it. I mean, you have said that states should control their resources. I don't know whether that is being peddled loudly enough, because some people would have said perhaps there needs to be a conversation about that as to whether or not your candidate will be able to pull out. Let me take you up on this issue of poverty. Poverty only recently, I mean, late last year, the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics released the multidimensional poverty report, and your party naturally lampooned the APC, the ruling All Progressives Congress, for dragging so many millions of Nigerians, according to your own estimation, into poverty. But if you look at the breakdown of the figures, if you look at how it's, because there was a state-by-state report assessment of the multidimensional poverty, the states of the PDP seem to be the most affected states in this issue of multidimensional poverty, and they fell directly within the purview of the state. Take, for instance, matters like education and health, which was a big component of the measurement of the multidimensional. Sokoto State, Bayelsa State, interestingly, was also, they were like the last two on the listing of states. Those states are majorly PDP states. What exactly is your party selling from the example of its states, from the example of the work that its governors have done, that it is capable of doing more at the federal level?
Well, for number one, it has to do with the man that is coming, on board. Is understanding of the situation. So when you have, at the national level, a president that appreciates the situation, then the problem is half solved. Now, and this is why, for an Atiku, it's about how do we move to where we're supposed to be. For him, it's about what do we need to do, to get back on track. So now, the subnational government has a role to play. So look at it, just like I didn't even read the report, but hearing from you now, but I understood that the report was majorly predicated on education and healthcare. So now, just suppose that with an Atiku who is coming, who's one of his cardinal focus is education, who's one of his another cardinal focus is healthcare. So it tells you what to expect, even in relation with the state. Because when you have a president who is coming and said, these are the things, this is going to be my major area of focus, then it means that the state, whether they like it or not, must keen to, even if you have to make additional law to compel the states, to improve on the record released by MBS, they will have to do it. And that's where, for me, I think an Atiku being an educator, an educationist who is highly interested in education of our children and who believes that education has given him everything to get him to where he is, I think Nigeria will be good for that.
This issue of, over 10 million, I think we're looking at almost 20 million out-of-school children.
Yes.
Is a major issue.
It is.
And I'm wondering, for your party, what precisely does it intend to do differently from what has been done before?
No, of course, Atiku said there's going to be free education at the basics.
But this is the same Atiku who wants to devolve more power to the state.
That's exactly what we're saying. Even if it doesn't mean that if he's devolving more power to the state, they will not do it. That's why I said there will be laws, there will be policies guiding this. It's just not going to be executive order. No. It's not going to be an executive order. It's going to be in our laws, because we make it compulsory for you to go to primary and secondary school free. It's compulsory. You have to go. And that's what Atiku has told Nigerians. So when you do this, do you know how many children you're going to get out of the street? Now, the current government tried to bring in what they call it, school feeding program. That is immersed in a lot of controversies and all that. So what has it called? Where has it landed us? Where has it taken us?
Let's look at some of the issues making the rounds today. I think your principal has talked about, I think he was quoted to have said, election riggers are pressurizing the CBN to extend the February 10 deadline for the currency exchange. And considering what Nigerians are going through today, could you explain what that statement means?
Well, my principal wouldn't just talk if he doesn't know that a lot of things are happening. Because how do you explain, Chamberlain, how do you reconcile the 5 governors or 6 or thereabout of the APC government are fighting the president for trying to do what is right for the first time?
What exactly is what is right?
This Naira, moving from cashless, from cash, to cashless. You know, it's a good one for us. It's a process. It's something I support. So it beats my imagination that some people are actually fighting that. Yes, the timing may be wrong, like people are saying, because what I believe is a process. And even in the United Kingdom, we saw what we have seen how they're doing it. So,
yeah, but in the United Kingdom, you mentioned they didn't give this short deadline.
That's exactly what I'm saying. That's what exactly, I'm just telling you that one, the timing for me is wrong. Number two, the deadline is too short. This should have been done maybe a year ago or 6 months ago. So if Atiku made such a statement, perhaps he has information that a lot of people that are talking about it, mainly from the ruling party, ruling government, are the ones fighting it. Yeah, but this is the time Mr. President is trying to do something good for the first time.
So but this same policy, we saw it in the 80s. So it's not the first time. This is a new policy.
I was very young in the 80s. Just tell me, how did it go in the 80s? Because I didn't know what happened in the 80s. 80s to this time is about over 30 years. A lot of dynamics have even changed globally, not even here alone. So you need to rise up and meet those new standards.
So because for those who think that he supports the scarcity, because this statement, they may interpret it as though he's saying, whatever is playing out, they are okay with it because, quote unquote, you say 5 governors are pressuring the president.
They're in court. Are they not in court? The APC governors.
I thought all the 36 states attorneys generals have been directed by the states.
Those who came out to fight it to say they were bosses. No, let me tell you what Atiku tried to do on all of this. He's only trying to be a passionate and compassionate that he has always been, because he felt that, sorry, Chamberlain, I was in Nasarawa State. There is a place in Nasarawa State now that they didn't even know about all of this. And they're still doing the transaction in old currency. Then you now said on the 10th, that was the deadline. So where would they put all those monies they were making? So Atiku was just coming from that point of being a compassionate leader who believes that...
By saying CBN, don't extend the deadline.
No, but he said, the statement he made, he said they should extend.
Yeah, no, he said they shouldn't extend it beyond the February 10 extension. No further extension.
That's at that time, because at that time it was so close, and he said, no, we need to look at...
So should he speak up now, having seen what is going on in the country now?
But you can see that when he speak, that the federal government reacted. That was the first one. Before the 10, before it was changed to 10, there was a grandstanding between the presidency and the CBN.
It's like you're about to change what it is that we read in the papers, because or what it is that we heard, or what it is that we've watched. You know, what your candidate has been quoted as saying is, do not succumb. I mean, that's talking to the CBN now. Do not succumb to blackmail. He thinks that, you know, the CBN governor is about to succumb or is being blackmailed by, you know, governors within the APC. But the reality, which you have also painted, is the fact that people are still not aware of this policy. And you are also aware. Just a moment. You are also aware of the fact that a lot of Nigerians are suffering untold hardship as a result of not being able to get access to this money. So, will you say that for political benefits, he's now saying, you know, it is okay? I mean, let the CBN not succumb to blackmail. It seems that he's in support of the policy and the timing. He's not differentiated between either of them.
I think he made that statement, you know, before the 10th of February, isn't it? I think he was clear about what he said. He said, do something because people are suffering. He was very clear about it, and that's what I'm saying. So you just can't grandstand, and people are suffering. That was the whole and short story of what.
So what about now? Should he say something for those who misunderstood what he said?
It would, if he needs to say something, he will speak.
Do you think he should?
Well, he will speak if he needs to speak.
You don't think he should?
It's not about me, it's about him. He's going to lead the country.
You're very...
He's going to be the one to lead the country. Yes, he's a team, but the team will sit down, because the team sat in the first season and said, look at it this way.
So you don't have an opinion?
And when he spoke, well, for me, I prefer that we run it as it's going now.
As it is right now?
Yes.
Why is that?
We need to be cashless. Let's just be total cashless.
Even though you've seen, as you say, in Nasarawa, people don't even know what's going on.
They must have gotten to them. Because CBN sent people there to go and actually attend to them.
He is also quoted to have said that the APC is pressuring INEC to postpone elections and that INEC should not succumb. Where is that coming from? Does he have it on good authority? What have you heard?
If I'm just hearing that you said this one, I'm not
in
hearing
the papers.
I didn't read papers.
Several people, news, everybody was quoting that. You didn't see that.
I didn't see that.
You never heard it.
I've not heard it.
You haven't heard anywhere.
I've been busy with so many things. I've not even heard it. You see my role in the campaign.
Doesn't mean you've not been in touch with him.
It's not about not being in touch. It's the role, it's the responsibility I have in the campaigns. That's taking me all over.
Can I ask you quickly, what does your party intend to do about cutting the cost of government, governance and even government? Because some people have blamed the PDP, especially on our return to democracy in 1999, of having been the one to increase the cost of governance and made government look so attractive that everybody wants to get in. For instance, they start with, say, the cost of cars and the type of cars that are used in government. Is it something that your party has given a thought to and intends to do something about? Okay,
Mope, the first is that there was one report called Orosaye report. Atiku was part of this process. I think they set it up, and then that's the first place to start with. Because Atiku also believes that the government is especially the federal government is too big. And that is where the issue of restructuring is going to come. That's number. Number two, this Orosaye report is going to be implemented to the letter because it's important. So there is need for us, for the government, or for the president, Atiku, when he gets there by the grace of God, to look, and that's exactly what he's going to do. He's going to do that to make sure that, because by the time you now bring down most of these baggages and all that, you have a trim government. And cost of governance will automatically reduce.
Well, at the moment, we're looking to see how all of this will play out. But you have said that, wait a minute, is the PDP going to campaign in Rivers State?
No, we're not going to Rivers. We're not going to Rivers. We've made it abundantly clear we're not going to Rivers. Let the river warlord take care of our people there.
It's not about security?
No, it's about security. You can see how people are being attacked on daily basis for campaigning for Atiku in Rivers State. A lot of us do not want to talk because we don't want it to look like you are, because whatever you say is going to have an effect on your party. But we have left Rivers State for Governor Wike to manage for the party. He's still a member of the PDP, and we expect that he will deliver Atiku, he will deliver Sim, and he will deliver all the other candidates under PDP.
How do you expect him to deliver? You didn't campaign.
He's a member of PDP. Are
you saying you expect him to rig it?
We're not coming there. I don't know, but he has to deliver. He's a member of PDP. He has to work for PDP.
But you didn't campaign. You want to reap what he didn't sow?
Governor Wike is campaigning all over the places, so he's campaigning.
For the state governorship?
No. PDP has traditional people that they will vote. They will vote for PDP. I think we will win Rivers State in this presidential election. Go and write it down. PDP is
even without
Rivers is the PDP state, and we have our traditional supporters in their millions there. It's not going to change anything. So Governor Wike will do the needful. We believe he will do the needful. He wouldn't allow anything. He wouldn't allow anything untoward to happen in that place. But we have told him that because of insecurity, because they're attacking Atiku people, they're attacking PDP people, and as a governor, as the chief security officer of the state, we have expected that he should move in. Unfortunately, he couldn't contain
him to move in on the security.
He is the chief security officer of the state.
He's not the police.
It doesn't matter. He speaks to. There are police there. There are soldiers there. So when during the election, don't we have security people working? What I'm saying is that as a chief security officer of the state, he was aware, or rather, is aware that PDP members are being attacked on daily basis. Macheting them, shooting them, killing them, and as the chief security of the officer of the state, we have expected. It's always in the news. We have expected that PDP Rivers State is PDP state, and Mr. Governor was expected to move in and contain it, but unfortunately, I think he was overwhelmed.
Did he not campaign in Borno, in Zamfara?
Who is not campaigning?
The PDP candidates. He campaigned in
those states.
Everywhere.
But
there were PDP members who attacked in that state. He campaigned in Jos. PDP members who attacked in Jos.
It's a different ball game.
What's different about attacks?
It's different. It's not the same thing.
What is different? I thought an attack is an attack.
No, it's not. I mean, when was the last time you heard about attacking in Zamfara?
But he had already campaigned there.
Apart from the one that happened between the governor.
The attack happened before he campaigned.
No. It doesn't work that way, Chamberlain. It doesn't work that way. We expect that Mr. Governor Wike will do the needful. We're campaigning in Oyo State. It was a successful campaign. We campaigned in Abia. We are going to Enugu today to campaign. Go and see the massive, campaign that we're going to. We see the campaign rally we're going to have in Enugu today. The governors, all of them are now they're doing their bit to ensure that we have hitch-free rallies in their various states.
Okay, so the party has decided they will not campaign in
because of insecurity. Yes, for insecurity. We can't. You hear what Atiku said? We can't afford any bloodshed. It's God that gives power. Let me tell you something. If Tinubu fails this election, or when Tinubu loses this election, it's not Atiku that made him lose. It's not Peter Obi. It's God.
So what about when
the same way when that's what I'm saying. Is that when a Labour Party man loses, it's not us, it's not PDP that made him lose. It's God that says he's not going to be president. So it's the same thing to Atiku. Nobody can claim that. It's God that gives power. And that's what Atiku has said. All right,
Fabi Oladimeji is the Deputy Director of Volunteer Management of the PDP's Presidential Campaign Council. Thank you for coming on, and all the best.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so Joseph Oludare, your comment is here alongside several other people, but I'm afraid we'll have to let it go at this point. Thank you very much indeed, everyone, for watching. We'll see you next time. I'm Chamberlain Uso. Goodbye.
Oh dear, looks like, anyways, it will have to be tomorrow then. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Maokwe Yusuf.
Well, you could call today's edition an edition of paradoxes. Paradoxes that you should reflect on as you head to the polls in 11 days' time. Thank you for watching. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
All the same, don't forget today's celebration. Share some love. I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful day.